Hello, hello, hello. Great. So last week I had too much of a cold to show my face. This week I've still got a cold. I'm going to keep my face this big in the corner of the screen. Still feeling quite vague, so it's going to be a very plain live stream today. And in fact, here I am 24 hours early. Sorry if you crave the live experience of your bibliographic metadata management software. But we are going to get this one in the bag early this week so that I can manage my life as I have obligations. So let's crack on with the show. It's going to be the usual sort of stuff. We're going to look at things that are changing, both within consonants and within the wider industry. We're looking at how to get ever further reach into the markets, sharing your data with them what needs it. We're going to do some levelling up in terms of expertise. We are going to go deep into certain areas, and we're going to do all of this at speed. What could be finer? We're not going to do it at speed. We're going to go very slowly today to accommodate my fuzzy brain. Right, change. Let's have a look. This has been a bit of a lazy agenda putting together, I have to say. I've mentioned before, we run a change log here. So every time we make a change to some code, we write in that, the sort of headline of what we're doing so that we can keep track of things. So I've just gone to the change log and copied and pasted into PowerPoint. But it is really interesting because so much stuff we do is client specific. And so much stuff we do is about code quality. And so I have to really selectively pull out the items that we have delivered that are relevant for talking on YouTube about. But it's true to say that probably most of the work that we do is for a particular client, and only they will, be communicated with about it. So if you are thinking, gosh, it would be great to have the low cost of an off-the-shelf software as a service, such as consonants, but I really have all of these particular requirements in mind. Well, that is not a blocker in the slightest. We have a different code for every client, and we manage it within the one code base, so we get the best of both worlds. But I can't tell you about most of those things because by definition, they are between us and our clients. And it's it's things like, how do I get certain data in a particular format to a certain recipient who is playing silly buggers? That tends to be the majority of the bespoke, careful wrangling. And when we're talking about change, and when we're talking about reach, that really is the trick of it, isn't it? And I shouldn't complain because it makes it necessary for consonants to exist. But the book trade is not the sort of industry where everything is by the book to the letter. Ironically, double irony. No, we have to accommodate other people's stages of where they are with upgrades, where they are with adhering to standards, etc. So yeah, so if you are a consonants client and you're thinking, I didn't know that, then definitely drop us a line, support@consonants.app, to say, I've been meaning for ages to do specific thing X. Can you help? Yes, we can. Right, on with the public stuff. Here in Change this week, I've got a change that we've made. I think it's live. As ever, we do the work. We merge it to our main branch. When it actually gets out onto production, I'm less in touch with, because I consider that work done. But here I am talking to you from the past as well. So by the time you watch this, it will be live, I'm quite sure. So it's a Data Studio display. It's an addition to an existing display. It was as a direct result of one particular client asking for it, but I think it's useful and interesting, and so we'll have a look at it. It's a column on the contracts display that gives you a clue as to how many reserves there still are on that contract. So let's hop over to consonants. We're local again, and we're going to have a look to see what I'm talking about. I'm on Data Studio, and I'm going to go to the contracts list. You do know, don't you, that when I say I'm on Data Studio, that is a feature of the consonants system. So I could just as easily say I'm on consonants, or I'm on the royalties in consonants. There's a lot of different features and functionality baked into the system. Data Studio, as we sort of touched on last week when we were talking directly to editorial assistants, Data Studio is important enough that it gets its own entry on the main nav bar at the top here, but it also has one here if you want to have it starred and easy access on your starred list, which I know you use all the time. I also know that you use the keyboard shortcuts all the time. Here they are. I press the control button so you can see the shortcuts. I still find myself just going and clicking on it. It's funny. So Data Studio is like a really important part of Consonants, the app, because it's where all of the threads get pulled together. It's where all of the data can be interrogated, listed, transformed, exported, things done with, and sense made of. So it's that's what that is, and it's we gave it a kind of a name, rather than just saying search or something. We gave it a name to give that sense that it is its own important place. So that's what I mean when we talk about Data Studio. And in Data Studio, as we know by now, you filter your data. There's no filters on this one. And then we choose the display of that data. And there's lots of different ways of seeing the results of that filtered search. And here we are looking at the contracts list. And this is a particular sort of display, and it's got the contract name, it's got the pays, the sign date, some dates there, and then it's got a bunch of counts as well. And so this one, Cats Throughout History, it's got 26 contract clauses. Interesting. Whereas Cats 7, that well-known book, has got 0 contract clauses. So this is one of those ways into your data where you can look at the numbers and get that immediate sense without actually having to mentally process a lot of actual text or anything. You get this sort of heartbeat thing instead of, okay, there's an advance on this one, but no advance on that one, that sort of thing. And the new column that we've added is right at the end there. It says number of reserves, if never zeroed. And most of these contracts do not have any reserves at all, or they've been zeroed off, and one of them still has a reserve. So we'll click around and have a look at that. Just want to mention before that though, what is a contract? What am I talking about when I say contract within consonants? And we're talking about the head contract. This is the agreement between you, the publisher, and the IP holder, the author often, or the contributors, or the agent, or some other entity that is able to license you, the publisher, the rights to publish this work. I hesitated because you don't necessarily need to publish it in all formats, in all territories, in full term of copyright duration. But you will do something with the IP, and the details of that will be contained in the contract. There's a one-to-one relationship in consonants between a contract and a work. So you'll remember a work has many products. So the work is the intellectual property. The product is the thing that you sell. It's the hardback, the paperback, the EPUB, the downloadable audio, the such and such. The work you don't sell, but you can license the rights in it. What's the mechanism for that? It's the head contract to secure those rights in the first place, and then rights for licensing on particular parts of the IP that you have licensed. So oftentimes, you'll outsource the the publication in translation. I mean, this is why we all go to Frankfurt, isn't it? In the London Book Fair, we sell rights, we license rights on to other parties. So this contract that we're talking about here, that's the head contract. Nothing to do with rights, except for the fact that it's where you secure the rights from the IP holder. Oh my God, I should just go back to bed. Hopefully you know all this, and if you don't, I'll go over it again properly when I'm less funny. So maybe clarity will come actually if we click on one of these contracts, and we're going to click on Cats Throughout History, because Cats Throughout History, I can see here, has one reserve that has not been zeroed. Now, when the lovely customer wrote in, the use case they were trying to solve here was that they didn't want there to be any contracts where there was a kind of unresolved reserve. You know, because if you say in your head contract, I'm going to reserve 20% of any royalties that are due to you, the author, on the first statement. And that is because of the absolutely bonkers way that the UK book trade manages returns, whereby, you know, bookstores can return stock up to 18 months after month of invoice, and that is apparently fine. So, you know, as a publisher, when you're doing more regular than every 18-month royalty statements, you want to make sure that, you know, you're withholding a certain amount of that royalty, because chances are the bookshop is going to send back that stock and their royalties aren't payable. So it's a well-known mechanism for getting around the wastefulness of the industry returns approach. And so the publisher wanted to check that there weren't any contracts that had reserves that stopped there, like 20% of reserves permanently. That would be weird. So in the next statement, it might go down to, now we're going to withhold 10% of royalties due, and on statement number 3 we're going to withhold 5%, and on statement number 4 we're going to withhold 0%, because by that point, books going on to backlist, chances are there aren't going to be sort of company destroying levels of returns. So this is like a nice kind of quality check to check that there's no contracts that haven't been constructed properly. What else have we got on Cats Throughout History? Number of contract royalty specifiers. Well, that's, a royalty specifier is a way to specify what the royalty is on the contract. It might be, we're going to pay 10% of net receipts, and that's going to rise to 12% after the first 2,000 units have been sold, or something like that. In Constance, you can have sales value escalators as well as volume. You can have date escalators, and you can have discount escalators. So, if you sell books to a retailer at a really high discount, because remember, in the book trade, it's the manufacturer, as in the publisher, who sets the retail price, and the retailer buys that stock at a discount. It's not how it works in real retail, I tell you. But in publishing, there might be high discount sales, and we can adjust the royalty that's due on those accordingly, because I'm sure as heck the publishers aren't making any money out of it. What else have we got? We've got the number of contract pays, we've got the number of contract payments, we've got the number of advances, we've got the number of license rights, and so that's 7 there. It's tiny, sorry. That number 7, that means that 7 different types of right have been secured in the head contract from the rights holder, the author probably, to the publisher. So we can have a look at that as well. We can have a look at contract clauses and some other dates, and that's all very exciting. So let's click through to Cats Throughout History. Let's have a look to see what the contract looks like. So we're taken through to the kind of work level area. Now all of the information that we're seeing is only ever going to be about cats throughout history. We're not up at the series level, we're not up at the imprint level, we're not up at the company level. Everything on the page is going to be about this one work. And we're on the contract page as opposed to the overview page or the metadata page or any project management area. And you can see that because we've got contracts and royalties highlighted there. If I click that drop down there, we're on the contract. There's some other good stuff that you can have a look at there as well. Then on this page, like on a few other hefty pages, we've got what's called a scroll spy along the top. So as I scroll down the page, you can see that the location that I'm on shifts, just to give that slight visual indication that here we are going down through the page. Like we looked at last week though, there's a filter, so I can have a look at, if I want to look at advances, I can type advances into the filter and that whittles the page down to only show information about advances. So pretty similar in a way to the metadata page, isn't it? And we've gone for that consistency of approach so that wherever you are in consonants, you're not having to learn different ways of navigating a page just because you're on the contract page versus the project management page or something. You've got this scroll spy, you've got filters to help you fathom what's going on. We've got tooltips on every attribute, and then when we want to edit some of this information, then we're going to usually press the edit button so that we can go in and make changes. When we don't want to be in edit mode, we are in sort of view only mode. So that's useful. So we came here because we are interested in these reserves against returns. So I could, take a guess at which section that's in, or I could type reserve, and that takes me to, it's in deductions, great. So we're into reserves against returns here. And sure enough, we can see that for all sales in this home gratis channel, the bliss of being in a nonsense account, sales in home gratis, getting royalties, on statement 1, reserve 22% of royalties due. And so that is a bit of a flag, isn't it? That's a bit of a, that's on statement 1, but we don't say what's happening on statement 2. So what we really want to do is to say, okay, let's take a, let's go into that and add a row. So on the home gratis, on statement 1, reserve 22%, but on statement 2, let's take that down to 10%, and then on statement 3, let's write it off entirely. And now if I save that, that is what I'm hoping to see. I'm hoping to see that there's a deduction, there's a withholding of money, of royalties due, but now it's going to whittle down to 0. And this is one of the reasons why it is such a good idea to use consonants to set up your contracts and run your royalties, because you're agreeing all of this up front with the author and agent. You're making it clear what the plan is going to be, because just so long as everyone is clear and understands what the commercial requirements are on both sides, then that's fair dues. Why have you withheld 22% of my money? Well, we explained before you signed the contract that was the case. And then from the publisher's point of view, you know that there's no mismatch between what was agreed with the author and agent at this stage, because I'm going to download the PDF and get this actual agreement out, and that's what gets signed and understood. There's complete lack of different databases, different versions of the truth between what was agreed at the start and what is followed through at royalty time. It's polite, it's organised, it's efficient for you, and it's really good use of the system that you have anyway. Back on Livestream number 50, we looked at, what are the things that people always ask when they're making an inquiry of consonants for the first time? And I drew your attention to the fact that it's always one version of the truth. because the timescales in the publishing process are so vast that you need some sort of system. And if it's not a system, capital S system, then, you know, you need to get really good at note-taking and Excel management and what have you, to make sure that what you believe in 2017 plays through to 2026. So one version of the truth, not just in bibliographic metadata, but in the things that really matter, which is the commercial actuality of trying to sell content for money so that people can pay the rent. So now if we go back to our data studio, we should see that this Cats Throughout History doesn't have a problem anymore because we have a resolved reserve situation. So I've hit the back button. I'm going to refresh the page, try and remember my words. Here's Cats Throughout History, and now sure enough, no reserves are on that contract that are not zeroed out. Oh, double negative. Yeah, you can workshop that one yourself. You get the gist. We've got a nice fat 0 there, whereas previously there was 1. Good. So this is kind of using the reporting in Data Studio as almost like a quality check or an insight check or a process check. You know, data always tells a story, doesn't it? And this might just look like some sort of kind of spreadsheety thing, but particularly when it comes to getting accurate and good data out there and treating people with respect, it's really good to have these insights that you can rely on. So that was what changed on that page this week. Lovely. What is next on our agenda? We're going over to Reach, and we're staying in Data Studio because there's another column that's been tacked on the end of a display. Just so happened it was the right place for it, but that's great. And I rather sort of pithily here say to do a relative to column. Again, this has come from an amazing request from one of our beloved clients. This was a plea for, can we have the earliest pub date on the to-dos list? Because we really want to know, you know, how fast is that date sort of closing in on us? We might have a whole list of to-dos for a particular work, and it says centre print here, or it says, you know, line edits due here or whatever. But like, when is D-Day? When is this thing in the shops? It's just, you know, really nice to see that clue. And we took that idea and we thought that is vital. But how about we make it sort of a shade more relevant to that to do? And let's put on the list the basis that the due date on that to do has been calculated. I'm going to show not tell because I'm just saying words now. Where do I need to go? I need to go to the to-do list. So I've no filters. I've used the switch to thing. I've typed in to do. It's found me to do. I'm actually going to star that for later because I keep doing that. And I'm on the to-do list. There are a number of different ways to see to-dos within consonants. This is one of them where, and you know, this is just in Data Studio. There are other ways at the work level as well. But what we've got here is the to-do name all down the left-hand column. And you can imagine this being in Excel a bit like this. You know, here are all of the to-dos. And then we've got the title of the work. So these are all to-dos for this one work. We've got a bit of information about who the to-do has been assigned to, what the due date is, what the done date is. And then if I scroll to the right a little shade, we've got this new column, which is not shipped yet. I do know that because it's still going through quality control. So we've got this new column and it says relative to, and it says that this to do, create full cover layout, is relative to the earliest pub date, and that earliest pub date is the 7th of May. So what does that mean sort of at more of a detail? Well, before I answer that, I'll just show you some alternatives. Look, here's one where the relative to attribute is the earliest manuscript text date. Have we got any others? No, they're all earliest pub date. Oh, production handover date. Such a doozy. Every publisher ever uses this handover from editorial to production as a really important moment in time, don't we? Because, you know, squishes happen either side of that date, and it's highly charged and important to get right and to have insight into. So let's just look at this top one. It's called Create Full Cover Layout. Apparently it's relative to the earliest pub date. Apparently the earliest pub date is the 7th of May. I'm going to click on the to-do name and we'll see a bit more detail. So here we are. What needs to get done? It's the Create Full Cover Layout. There's a responsibility. How are we calculating what the due date is? It is not just it's not that there's no due date. It's not that there's a fixed due date. And, you know, if that's like, if the to-do is have Christmas dinner, and then that date is going to be the 25th of December, and you can't change it. That's just how some dates go. But in publishing, most of the time you are working relative to something else. And on this one, we've chosen that we need to create the full cover layout and have that finished 9 months before the earliest pub date, which is the 7th of May 2023. I'm going to click on this. I'm going to make this a bit bigger, and I'm going to click on this this drop down here just so that we can see some of the other options, because the earliest pub date for any of the products on this work makes a lot of sense. That's great. But there are other options available. You might, for reasons that my foggy brain won't go into, you might want to key it against the latest pub date. Can't think why. Maybe you want to have a to-do that's called review contract expiry date. You know, you've published all of the products that you're going to publish, and then 30 days after the latest pub date, you might want to have a review or something. You might want to key it against the earliest or latest print pub date, ebook pub date, audiobook, etc., etc. And you'll notice that some of these types of dates don't actually have a date against them. So this is a really nice feature of Consonance. You can set up all of the to-dos on a project that you want to see through, but you don't need to have put all of the dates in to that project in order to use those sorts of dates in your to-dos. So, you know, there's clearly no ebook on this work, and if there is, it hasn't got a pub date, so it doesn't have an actual date after it. But I can still use this notion of earliest ebook pub date, and then I know that when that data is added, the thing will spark into life, put a real date on it, and I'll probably get a big red overdue button appear if I'm the one responsible for it. Yeah, so we've got these pub dates. Then we've got some other super useful types of dates that exist in your one version of the truth. And here we are looking at the contract dates. So, you know, the power of being able to set a to-do relative to the point when the manuscript is due. It's such a game changer. I have a theory, which is that all problems in the publishing process stem from a late manuscript. Because, you know, if the manuscript is on time, then you don't need to reschedule anything. Everyone can do things in the published time scale that, you know, we set out doing on this project. You know, other things can happen. Paper mills can run out of paper and things, but it's just one less disaster waiting to happen. So I think it's a really great idea to set up maybe, you know, 2 or 3 to-dos on every work that say 12 months before the earliest manuscript contents date, have a to-do that's called, you know, check in with author number 1, and then assign that to the commissioning editor, and then that pops up on their list, and they send off a human email saying, "Hi, wow, can you believe it? 1 year today that you need to deliver this manuscript. How are things going? And then you've got like all the time in the world to get this sense, if your email goes unanswered, you can escalate as appropriate. Or if the email comes back saying, oh, is it only 1 year? I thought it was, point is you've got a chance to set up some reminders that will save future you and future your team a lot of time going forward. And of course, what that means then is that you need to use the contract area that we were looking at earlier, so that these dates do actually get used. So if you use consonants to generate your head contracts between you and the author or agent, then and put these dates in, they have signed to say, yeah, these dates look fine, and then you can use those dates in your workflow like this. So that they're not just like printed on a Word document and put in a file somewhere, or put on a SharePoint server and never to be, sort of wrangled with again. Keep your data alive and useful. Just because data is in a contract, it has huge repercussions and utility in the rest of the process. So I think it's just a lovely way to make the most of your investment into something like consonants. Use your one version of the truth, not just for data accuracy, but for workflow. So loads of different contract dates. And then we've got some fantastically useful production type dates as well. I mentioned production handover date. That's handover from editorial to production. And you can set up a whole wealth of to-dos pivoting around that date to make sure that production are given every chance to see what's coming down the line, and editorial are able to give production every chance to know what the adjustments might be without there having to be a 70 long email thread about it. So that is what we mean when we say relative to. The relative to, sort of the type of relative to, is these words. It's relative to the earliest manuscript, or it's earliest to the production handover date. And then the date itself is the date set in other parts of the system. So like the earliest pub date, that's set on the metadata page. The earliest manuscript contents date, that's set on the contract page. The production handover date, that's set in the production area of the work. And those two things at the moment, they are not set. Doesn't mean we can't use them. So hopefully that is a useful mini addition to that display. But wanted to use the chance to just talk about these relative to dates anyway. And another thing that came up actually this week was about the roles. If we've got one of these relative to dates, the contract expiry. That's a great one. What happens after the terminated date of the contract? Maybe we want something like, review terms, or remove from sale. If we're talking about, the contract has ended, remove from sale. I can't type. If I could type, I would type by setting Onyx to permanently withdrawn from sale, or no longer our product, or whatever the correct thing is. And then I can set responsibility for that. And, the end of the contract date might hopefully be in 20 years' time. You do not know the actual person who is going to be responsible for that, but you can guess at what the role might be. And so here again, you can say, well, we're going to make this the responsibility of the commissioning editor on this work. We don't need to have said who the commissioning editor is just yet. What we can do is say we're going to make the commissioning editor the person in charge, and then as this work takes on more and more information, more and more data, we can set up the team responsible for all different things on here. So here we are, Cat's Art History. The commissioning editor is going to be me, and then I've got my team allocated. I can change that. I can have multiple different people on the same, can't spell, multiple different people fulfilling the same role, if there's a job share or a sort of a larger team than usual going on. And then those actual individuals, they're going to see the to-dos for that role on their to-do list. So, it's all intended to work over vast timescales where you don't want to hold this information in your head. The information is very, very likely to change, but the basis for running this project needs to be agreed up front. So these are all very useful tools, I think. Anyway, that was that, all about Reach. What is next on the list? Another very wordy copy and paste job from our changelog. This is a really small one, but I quite liked it because it shows that consonants is a very thoroughly used system. And sometimes I think that when you're in a system all day long, it's the little things that make a difference. I don't think I'm even going to show you. No, I will show you. There's a report in Data Studio. There's a set of them actually. They're called one-click downloads. And we got a great ticket in from a treasured client saying, love the one-click downloads. Would it be possible if the column ordering on that download was absolutely the same as the prices importer spreadsheet? And I looked at it and had to get my brain in gear, and then I thought, yeah, of course, because the workflow is, and let's do it now. You go to Data Studio, you go to you're thinking, I want to do a massive update of all of my prices. I want to do a search for all of my paperbacks, which I could totally do in filters there. And then I want to grab them. I want to grab all of the prices for those. So I click there. And these are super fast downloads. They kind of skip the whole web stack and go straight to the database and grab the data and dump it as a CSV. So I get my, will this open? If I open with Excel, sorry, other people's software and I have to wait for let Excel open. So I get all of my prices. I grab them and I have them. Yes, don't convert. And I have them all in a particular format. And then what I want to do is a little bit of natty Excel work to update all of these by 0.35% or whatever the plan is. But then I want to save this spreadsheet and slurp it straight back into consonants. And to do that, I now go to the imports area and I create a new import. I want to import prices. I get the prices template, download that to Excel. That's going to open in LibreOffice. And then, hey presto, I can save the whole thing as the new name and slip it back in. The columns were not quite in the same order. So it was really great that our client took the time to write into us to say, do you think, could you just put them in the same order? And then I can do this in 10 seconds and I save an extra 5 seconds of, moving one column from one way to the other. So we do that sort of light chamfering of features whenever we can, and I think it's delightful to be able to sort of buff and polish to absolute perfection. Just take those little gnarly snagged edges off so that everyone can move at lightning fast speed. I think I had this in the wrong box, didn't I? This is expertise. These are all interchangeable. But anyway, so now the one-click prices download is in the same order as the prices importer. Tiny change. We could make a change really quickly because our code is tested to the hilt. And so we know that by making those changes, we're not breaking any other part of the system in a tucked away area. And hopefully that's just going to make life a shade better for whoever encounters that feature in the future. So keep the ideas coming, as ever. We do try and think of these things ourselves. We're not, parceling out all of our responsibility to our treasured clients. But it's really nice to know that we can, shave the edges off some little snags wherever possible. Great. What is next on the list? Yeah, so this was a same sort of thing, really, actually. On the royalties area, the workflow. Let me show you. It's better than looking at PowerPoint, isn't it? So in the royalties area, the workflow is you obviously use your contracts area, like we were looking at earlier, to set up the contract in the first place. Say that we're going to pay 10% of net receipts in home sales or whatever. Then time passes, publication happens, and we import sales into consonants, and then we can run the royalties. And we do a royalty run, and that is at the sellable unit level. So like you don't sell the work like we've talked about, and you wouldn't expect to see author names on the royalty run itself, because the author name is more to do with the statement. The royalty runs are we've sold a load of products. What did we get for each of them, and what royalty is due? Then a separate stage is, okay, now we're bundling all of that relevant information together into statements. And so you go through and you do your royalty run, you do your statements, and then at the end of that process, you get a report that you can download, and it's the royalty payments report. And you find that on the royalty statement itself. And it was the same sort of thing. Like, this is a great report because we now get all of the people and and they can be either author or agent or some entity or a literary estate or anyone really, because there's no obvious link between an author and a payee on a contract. It could go to an estate, it could go to a company, it could go into a new and early career fund for academics early on in their career, all sorts of places it could go. But you need to know what that pay is and what amount they're going to get. And you also need to know at some point what their email address is and what their postal address is. And so we've added in the email address and the postal address onto that payment export report. So it's all, self-service through the interface. And again, taking huge advantage of that one version of the truth. Because if you're over here, using the people and organisation address book, then you've already committed to making sure that you know what the up-to-date email address, the correspondence address, the postal address, the delivery address is for all of the people and organisations that you come across. So you get to use that on a royalty payment download report. So all really nice, kind of everything talks to everything else. It is really walking the talk of one version of the truth. It sounds like such a trite saying, doesn't it, when you just sort of parrot it? But it is so true that I find it difficult to understand the idea that there might be departments with discrete data within any publishing company or any company at all. We all share the information that the company has access to. Yes, there's some departments and some people who need not have access to privileged information, which is fine. You set up your admin rights and consonants in other systems to make sure that people don't have to, trouble themselves seeing information they don't need. But when there is information that can rightly be shared, it makes such sense. And here we are in middle of 2026, and I still witness companies with a rights department that has completely separate software, and the majority of their role is chasing other departments for what the correct version of the truth is. So one version of the truth. Still a big fan. let's do it. Right, what's next? On the list is speed. Another wonderful client. In fact, the same wonderful client as earlier, preserving anonymity, said, hey, would it be possible to have a kind of a conditional situation on the custom reports? So you will remember that we have this big long list of data elements that you can use on your marketing materials and your catalogues. And it's the same list that gets used in the spreadsheet custom reports. And they said it would be really super useful if we could have one of those data elements be the back cover copy, or if that's missing, the main description. So we added that in, and that got shipped ages ago actually. Let me see if I can find it. This is the custom reports that I'm talking about. Let's go to the front list. Here are all of the data elements that are on this one particular report. I'll click add columns so that we can see the sorts of things I'm talking about. We've got a handy dandy filter at the top here. If I type in back, then I'll be able to get everything's got back cover copy or main description. Absolutely lovely. I've got a horrible sense of deja vu actually. We might have talked about this before on a live stream, but that's all right, because you might have missed it. So that is a handy thing there. It can be used on this custom report, which emits to a spreadsheet, some sort of Excel type of a thing, or you can use that on your marketing materials. You find marketing materials here in metadata. You could type marketing materials in there, couldn't you? And then we can see that we can add an element, and the same sort of filter applies. If we type back, then we have got back cover or main description. So yeah, this was a great example of a client really diving in, using all of the tools to their great advantage, identifying that there was one little extra bit that would make life even better, and our wonderful team member here jumped on it and has delivered it and is now available. So that is just super duper. Said wonderful team member has also done 80 billion other things since she did this. But we can't talk about those because those are all client specific. But well done her. Well done everybody. That is it. 24 hours early. God, talk about speed. We're like jumping ahead of the sun. That's how fast we are here at Consonance Towers. I hope that this cold has gone fully by next week. I shall enjoy breathing again unfetteredly. I hope you're doing all right through the summer. Not too hot, not too anything. The sorts of things that we've talked about today, you can tell that customers, our clients, are saying, love consonants, can it also do this? And so you shouldn't be shy, precious customers, to get in touch and say, I would love it if we can do that. We are quite on top of feature requests at the moment. If we haven't shipped the feature request, we've either said that it's on the list or there's a problem with that. We're not going to do it for the following excellent reasons. So, don't hold back. We're doing all right in terms of responsiveness. So, yeah, if there's anything, you might come back from your summer holidays all reinvigorated, wanting more out of your one version of the truth. That's what we're here for. So drop us a line. Onwards and upwards. Right, take it easy. Have a lovely weekend. Well, most of the week's still left, actually, but when it comes, have a lovely weekend. I shall see you next week.